today, but we don't see a good mix of people like this too often, do we? And this is what needs to happen if we're going to change. There's a lot, I work at the Urban League, so I'm out in the community quite a bit, and I get invited to a lot of different meetings, but right now, the thing that's going to save us is entrepreneurship. What's really going to save us is working together in entrepreneurship and working globally, And some of the things we're going to talk about tonight, first I got to say this guy right here. He was sitting in my class many years ago, told me what he was going to do, and the short story is I got called to start writing articles for the Atlanta Business Journal, and they said, we want you to write articles for the site, and we want you to talk to the web developer. So they sent me his name, and I'm like, nah, that can't be. Called him up, it was Kevin. So you talk about somebody that's proud. He's having me, and there's how much I trust him. A lot of times when people call and ask me to speak at different things, I want to get all involved and help planning. I said, I ain't going to do nothing. I'm just going to show up. Okay, and that's what I did, and you're here. And I just want to thank you for coming out, because this is something they're really trying to do, which I think is important, and I like the word he used in the flyer was discussion. We need to really talk about what's going on right now, but we need to, a lot of times when you go to an event, you got people talking at you, but tonight I really want to have a conversation. You got this guy right here, he got quite a story, I got like 10 pages. Life stories right here. But and these two young men I've been working with. So, but I do want to start this conversation out tonight about a lot of us are trying to market our businesses, and we don't understand this whole. How many people are using social media to market their business? How many people know what they're doing when using social media? I mean, the whole deal really is that a lot of people are all of a sudden Facebook stars, but they don't have a strategy, okay? And there's certain techniques to use in digital marketing, and a lot of people are not doing it. First thing is always have a great photographer, okay? And somebody to capture your stuff in a professional way. I mean, I know your cousin says he's a good photographer. But, okay, I tell you, if you really want, people are, because you got to cut through the noise. There's so many people out there putting their stuff out, you got to make sure your content is better. I've been doing a radio show now for about 4 years on the internet. I'm using Blog Talk, it's internet-based, but my show got picked up nationally earlier this year. But it's because I've been very consistent with the quality of the work that I do, and very consistent with the type of posting that I do. And I had a small strategy. Now with these guys here, I'm going to blow up. But the whole deal is tonight we're going to talk about it. So I'm going to sit down here. But I want it to be a discussion. So I'm going to ask questions. But if you have questions, shoot your hand up, because we got a lot of answers. These three guys right here. So we're going to start the conversation out first talking about digital marketing. What is the definition of it really? I think it's confusing for a lot of us. Should I use Facebook? Should I use Instagram? Should I use Pinterest? Should I be doing Facebook Live? And some of these questions people are trying. I know some of you, I haven't seen you doing Facebook Live. I ain't gonna point you out. But the thing is, you gotta get your story told, but you gotta tell it well. So we're gonna start the conversation. I'm gonna sit down here. I'm gonna start talking to Kevin first, talking about, just describe, if I were to ask you to describe just whole digital marketing, what's the importance of it today?
The importance is this. We live in a world now that is completely overcrowded. Every business field has more and more businesses coming out every day, starting up, and it's so easy to get lost amongst all the businesses, amongst all the people in social media, as he says, all the look at me's and all this type of stuff. So the thing that what you need nowadays is you have to get attention, and you have to get eyes on your business, and you have to do it in different ways, because what has happened over the years, people got sick of being advertised to. We're sick of looking at commercials, we're sick of looking at ads, we're sick of pop-ups and everything else. So now we have to create new ways of marketing ourselves, new ways of organically getting attention for ourselves. For instance, now almost everyone has to be content creators. We're constantly creating content around all types of subjects. For instance, with Enjoy Life, we simply started to create some cleaning tips that we put out in social media, very organic. We even shot it on cell phones, but it blew up like wildfire, and Diane's a rock star, trust me. And that's her big husband right there. So, lot of tension in this day and age. It really is. And it's not so much look at me, look at me. It's more so about you get a lot of your business when you're out doing business, when you're out working. So what we need to be able to highlight organically in social media is you working, what you're doing. This is our business. This is what it looks like. This is how we're helping people by cleaning homes and allowing them to enjoy life. This is how we're changing photography with some of the greatest photography work I've ever seen in my life back there with Montel. But that's what it's about now. So it's really about creating content that feels organic to people, that I don't feel like I'm being advertised to, but yet still I am advertising to you. You know, so.
Brian, answer this question for me. People have their personal Facebook account and their business Facebook and social media. I think it gets confusing for people what to really put out. If you're a business owner, can you still do personal stuff and business stuff, or what should you be focusing on?
I mean, that's a really good question, because we are in the age where your personal brand is everything. So we even had a conversation with one of our clients, and their 13-year-old daughter was talking about their personal brand, how to develop their personal brand through social media. And so it's very interesting how you have to really juggle that. I think what you should do is, how I normally do it is more so like, what do I not want out there? You have to be conscious about it. What do I not want out there? How do I want to represent myself to the world? And so that's the way you have to look at it, and especially as a business owner. But having a strong personal brand is very imperative. Even if you have your company page, it's just how people connect with your company. Think about a platform like LinkedIn. We had a client, one of the clients that Dash Digital gave to us, which was Fresh Scent Solutions. And so on there, it's more of a fragrance company, aromatherapy, scent marketing company, but on a platform like LinkedIn, where I need to connect to a person, they don't allow you to act as a business on LinkedIn. You need that personal brand on there. And so if the more your personal brand is, the higher your cloud is, you can make a lot of moves. Look at our president. His personal brand was very high. Yeah. And so, that connected and that resonated with a lot of people, that you really took in his message. And so that's something to consider as you're developing your company.
And the most important thing to realize about that is that everything you put out matters.
Yes.
Okay? I work with people that are trying to get jobs, but they don't realize their Facebook page is hanging out. And they don't realize the employers are looking at this. Yes. And I work with hiring managers, and they get your resume, they go right to Facebook, put your name in, and look and see what they see. So your personal brand, which is something that's become more important because of social media, is very, very important. It's the person that you want people to see, because people want to buy from people they like.
Exactly.
Okay, and people they feel they know. And believe me, I put out my brand. I go so many places because I put so much out. People go, I know you. They don't know why. I go, I know why. I put out about 6,000 emails every Monday morning. That's why. But the fact is, they do feel like they know me, and they feel like they can come up and approach me because of what I do on social media. But it's one of those things where, for the Abraham here, as an entrepreneur, we're going to talk later about your association, but how important is it from a business standpoint for the digital marketing?
Well, I am very excited to announce that moving forward, GCA just entered into partnership, and so we will be clients of Influencer 365. So digital marketing is really important, and so especially as an entrepreneur, and even someone who doesn't understand digital marketing to some degree, I'm like most of you, right? At least make an attempt at it, and then we'll realize that sometimes, I realize that I'm good at it. Sometimes I realize I'm not good at it. And digital media is something that I'm kind of mediocre at. So we realize that we need professional help. But to give you a specific example, even just trying to figure this out on my own, I built a very simple 3-page website and I put out information around that 3-page website. And every time I give away a free disc of free information. And every time someone downloads that, they pay for shipping, which is $7. But the average person that ends up giving me money through that one website is $22. And I give it away for free.
Wow.
All they have to do is pay shipping. But then there's upsell after that. And then they end up giving me on average about $22, $23. So now it starts to pay for my marketing a little bit. So I realized that you have to try something. But even with that there, it gets you to a certain point. But digital media, I realize, is bigger than just a 1-page, or 3-page website. It's bigger than just LinkedIn itself. It's bigger than Facebook itself. That you need really a team around you that really can connect all the dots to make sure that you're successful. So that's kind of what I realized, and that's why we're working with Influencer 365.
I've been asking questions. Anybody got a question you want to ask these guys? You're not going to charge them, are you?
No. It depends on the question.
Yes, ma'am.
You know what? We didn't get a chance for everybody to introduce themselves. So if you do raise your hand, you're going to be required to say who you are. All right?
Hey everybody, I'm Tinsley Bradford with Tinsley Bradford LLC. I'm a speaker and influencer. But my question is, and I don't believe in buying followers at all. I'm not a follower buyer. But there's sometimes I get so many people coming to my inbox going, I can get you this many followers, I can do this, I can do that. And then sometimes they're saying they'll be genuine, legit followers and all that stuff. Is it at times okay to invest in buying them?
No.
Yeah, I
No.
would say.
That's how I feel.
That's basically what you want. I love it.
The funny thing is, so I'm originally from New York, so on the Today Show, you see them all the time. Taking their shirts off and everything, and you're like, how do they stay? But that's why they're behind the camera, right?
It completely threw me off. But basically, no, we do not purchase followers. We don't.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, what you want, when you start talking about followers, it's great. And I've been down that alley, for real. And a lot of times what you get is like 5,000 followers coming out of India. And these are people that will never, seriously, that's what you get. But these people will never be your customer. And what we're looking for are customers and clients. We're not looking just for, hey, let me get some more likes. Let me look at the quality of my likes. Let me see who is liking me. And let me see if this person will actually do business with me. Because at the end of the day, if I'm doing all this marketing and I'm trying to create all this media and all this content to get business, and people are just, oh, I like that. That's such a great picture. But these are not people that's going to do business with me. It's not going to benefit me.
The key word there is conversion.
Yeah.
Yes.
The whole purpose of marketing is to get somebody to like your stuff, and so you can convert them to a customer. And you forget that concept, then you won't grow.
And I've never done it, by the way.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Question. Tanisha Burgess, moving into collaboration with the Atlanta Business Journal in regards to expanding their digital market for women empowerment. So look out for that. Really
Black Girl
excited about
Yes.
So just to piggyback off of your question, Tinsley, what about those individuals or companies who want to scale their business and collaborate or partner with bigger companies, but those bigger companies judge the amount of followers you may not have in relation to how successful you are?
Well, yeah, so
happens.
that does happen so we do this with some of our clients where we connect them with influencers on different platforms. And the thing about it is that you have to think of the bigger companies, they really don't understand social media. That's why they're still on TV, they're still doing radio, they're still doing a lot of these traditional mediums. But with that, I think it's more, you do want to have the followers, but I think what's more important is about the engagement. So typically the rule of thumb is if you do work with an influencer, they need to have 100K followers or greater. However, if you can see the engagement, if you have a higher engagement rate, that's something that you can point out, that my actual viewers, followers will actually act on the things that I'm doing. That is something that you can point out to those larger brands to kind of really promote yourself to do that. And the thing about the influencer kind of market right now is that, number one, it's underpriced. because it's so many people that are able to do it, but it's underpriced right now. And right now, as people, if you become an expert at it, if you become an expert at like, okay, you promote with me and I get your results, then you can start to really demand your price. So if you are a brand that is thinking about working with influencers, it does work, but you just got to make sure that their engagement rate is really high. And if you are an influencer that is looking to connect with brands, you want to make sure that you are really engaging with your audience, liking them before they like you. And that's what's going to make the difference.
Something else is very important about what they're saying. Use the word engagement, but unless you're tracking the metrics.
Yeah.
Okay, like for example, I send out a lot of emails from my radio show. I may not have a lot of listeners that night, but I know 300 people open my message.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be using tools where you can get the metrics because they're at least looking at my content.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way you set your content up, if you try to get them to go to your site, you can tell if they click, what they do. I can tell you what time they open it, what they do after they open it.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you what they were eating when they opened it. But my point is that but the whole goal really is when you're trying to deal with selling your product, it's not just how many people like you on social media. You need to be keeping the metrics of, like I use constant contact for my email because I can tell when people open it, where they go. I got my metrics. Yeah. It's amazing to me, but you got to pay attention. A lot of people don't run the reports. But you got to run the reports.
That's very good. I mean, because I find myself scrolling and I may see something that catches my eye, but I may not like it.
Right.
So you want to be able to capture that.
Right. You got and that's something else that's very important too. When you're using social media, you do not put a call to action. You do not ask them to like it. If you do not ask them to go here, if you do not ask them to go somewhere, I call it, you're trying to get them to, right now they're flicking, you're trying to get them to click.
Right.
So you got to ask them, please click.
Yes.
Okay, but if you don't ask, you won't get a reaction.
And let me add one. I'm sorry, but no. Let me add one more thing. It's not just social media. It's not.
Right.
It's a lot more. It's email marketing. It's power listing. It's reputation management. It's about strategic content placement. These are all the type metrics and all the type things that we use to help drive more followers in social media and help drive more traffic to the website. Because at the end of the day, the biggest benefit is to get social media to drive traffic to the website.
Right.
Because once I have you on my website, I have your full attention. Now I don't have all this crazy stuff above my post, below my post, stuff over in the sidebar, ads popping up. Now I have your full attention. So now once I have your full attention, it's about having engaging content on that website that's going to keep it and that's going to convert this person that's just looking into an actual client or a customer that wants our service.
Jimmy Rogers with R&R Consulting Group and Relationship Real Talk. So, was
that a plug or was
do you all work with your client as it relates to finding out who their niche market is, to develop this plan to market them, to scale the business, so forth and so on? Because the reality for a lot of entrepreneurs, you really don't, it's hard to find who your market is or to really know who it is specifically. You may have an idea, but knowing that for certain and where those people are is the key to the castle, so to speak. I think if do you all help design that full plan and then implement it?
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Being consultants, even when we enter into a new industry, we have to become experts at that industry. So in the first 30 days, what we do for our clients is that we like to do our social media and all of our findings to be organic so we can find out where the intention is coming from. So once we understand where that attention is coming from those particular markets, then we decide to do more of an advertising plan to be a little bit more aggressive to get in front of those people. But that first week of discovery that we do for our clients, we're able to pretty much kind of pinpoint a little bit as far as who your ideal customer is going to be. And usually with you guys are experts in your field, so you're able to tell us a lot of stuff, but then we go and test that out to see if that is true. And so, to answer your question, yes, we are able to help you pinpoint exactly who your audience is. But then we also just don't want to stick to that audience because you want to expand. So we start to get meta with it. So we have to identify, okay, this is what your audience. Now, what do they really like? And what they like, they share commonalities with a lot of different audiences. So we have to just make sure that we're analyzing the data to be able to help you just pinpoint that audience, but then also expand your message.
One of the things too, in defining who your customer is, it's on you to define what is the problem you're solving, and then that helps you find out who your customer is.
Yeah.
Okay, because a lot of times when I talk with business owners and I say, what problem are you solving? And they go, good food? Okay. But no, what kind of good food? You really have to be very specific when you're trying to figure out who your customers are, because your customers are people that are going to pay you to solve a problem for them. Whether it's going out to a restaurant, whether I'm having a problem in my relationship, or whether it's whatever it is, they're paying you to solve a problem. Unless you identify specifically what that problem is, you will not be able to find out what we call your early adopters, the people that are going to come running regardless. And a lot of times people have a problem because they're afraid because other people are selling what they sell. But I always use McDonald's and Burger King as a difference. You know, McDonald's will open up and Burger King opened up right across the street. What was the difference between McDonald's and Burger King? Well, it was that. It was a little more. What was the big difference?
Location.
Nope. Here's what it was. McDonald's, you ordered a Big Mac, 2 all beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese. Okay, if you went up to the counter and said, I don't want that special sauce, and you take it off, they go, no, we can't take it off.
Have it your way.
Have it your way. Burger King said, come on over here, we'll make it the way you want it, and we're going to flame broil it for you. But my point is, a hamburger is a hamburger, right? But they sold to the weakness of McDonald's. They'll do it your way now. But that's how Burger King first got into the business, because they said, come on over here, have it. That was their slogan. Have it your way. Okay? And so they were able to capture that market, but because they identified a problem that people were having at McDonald's. Now McDonald's will give you a little fork, you can scrape it off yourself. But the deal was Burger King, you don't have to scrape it, come on over here. So they solved another problem. So you really have to understand what your problem is to find out who your customers are. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you again for inviting me.
Sure, more than welcome.
Appreciate it. So my name is Kalia Meeks, and I am the president and CEO of Illustrious Consultants who do government contracting. And also I have my in the building. And I also am an influencer as well, and I'm an author and public speaker.
Wow.
Now, on my personal brand, I have it set up where I have my book that I promote, and then I have my personal speaking, engagements that I promote.
Okay.
And I'm a personal development, signature expert.
Okay.
So what I wanted to know is how, with the demographics, can I incorporate, selling the book and, also motivating others by, looking for speaking engagements, and also finding others to collaborate with on social media to, venture out together, partner together for speaking engagements and opportunities and things of that nature. Thank you.
It's not even going to charge for that one.
I know, right? That's why I was like, hold on, I'm going to think about it. We're going to come back to you.
I got a swipe thing. That's why we were
most people are diverse people. None of us just do the same thing all the time. The main thing is creating ways that we can kind of consolidate all the things that you're doing. The book, the speaking, the government contracting, we have to figure out some type of way to kind of bring this all together. Number one, with you being a person, period, that's one great way of saying, hey, this is all the stuff that I do. I'm just that bad, But it's just about kind of creating some type of message and some type of strategic content that kind of just brings everything full circle for you, that we can start to create and just get it more direct, and that we can reach out to people with.
Okay.
We're going to have to sit down and have a long discussion about all that.
Let me get you guys to define the term influencer. We hear it a lot. I'm an influencer. I influence my nephew sometimes. But define influencer.
all of us are influencers. All of us has influence over someone. When we start talking about it in this day and age, it's become one of those, phrases, buzzwords or whatever. But in this day and age, it means more so being an influencer, just being someone that can create let me not say force, being someone that can get other people to take action. So when I say, hey, you need to try out Enjoy Life Cleaning Services, everybody should go try out Enjoy Life Cleaning Services. Or if you're having problems in your marriage or you just want to make your marriage better, you should talk to Mr. Rogers. Or if you are looking for some of the best photography in the world, you need to come see Myself and Dash Digital Studios. I mean, that's exactly what it's about. Now, if y'all get some business, I want referral fees. And if you want to know anything about government contracting, you really need to speak with Abraham Xiong. So, I mean, that's basically what it's about, and that's what being an influencer is about. And all of us are that. We really are.
And on a deeper level, it's more about the trust too. Right. My audience, my people that I engage with, trust me enough to take my recommendation. Right. That's how you really influence. And I think a lot of times with digital, people like to treat it like a one-night stand. It's a relationship. Every single day you got to be engaged. You got to show up. That's right. Every single day. Every day. It's a commitment. It's a marriage. You got to show up every day.
Yes, ma'am.
I tried.
But I'm here on behalf of Mr. Purnell, Atlanta Business Journal founder, and also Gospel Voice Awards, and just does everything.
Yes.
My name is Priscilla Vicky McCallum, and I do red carpet interviews, whereas we celebrate the legends of our classic R&B legends. And you can feel free to go on YouTube and just check out that. Anyway, I just want to say thank you so much for such a great job that you were doing. Creed Purnell wanted me to come on his behalf to let you know he's just so sorry he couldn't make it, and he wanted to know that he was in the house.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
But to really highlight how strong digital marketing is and how needed it is, we came to sell Mr. Xiong on our services, and he ended up selling us on his.
Sold each other.
But no, even the what was it, the Navy, they have huge government contracts looking for people doing social media. That's how powerful it is. So it's a very, 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 very strong way to market your business in this day and age. And making sure that you have a solid digital presence is a must. There's no other way. You must have it.
So what are the first steps, okay, if they're interested, we pique their interest, what do they need to do to engage you?
Call me. My number is 770-870-8806. I know it's on Facebook Live. So 770-870-8806. But no, you can find us on social media. You can hit our website, influencer365.com. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on LinkedIn. I mean, almost anywhere. You can find Influencer365 in the Atlanta Business Journal at this point.
And the thing that is very important is not only telling a story, but telling it well. Mm-hmm. Telling it so it's engaging. Like when I get ready to have the conversation with this young man right here, you'll see about telling the story. You'll see why he has accomplished what he's accomplished. And that's what people want to know. As a business owner, they want to know who you are. Who are you really? Mm-hmm. What are your values? What are your beliefs? And I don't think you have to get out there and be all opinionated and everything, but you can tell people who you are without telling them everything. But they really want to buy from people they know and people they like and people they trust.
Yes.
And you can do that through social media. The lady said right there, I'm an influencer. I guess I am. But the fact of the matter is, my whole thing about influence, I'm trying to influence people to take control of their lives.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and walk in their purpose.
That's right.
Okay, whether it's non-profit, for-profit, but to me, when you're walking in your purpose, you're successful. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's not a matter of what kind of car I'm driving and all that. I drive a 2004 Runner, got 328,000 miles. But the fact is, I'm walking in my purpose.
That's right.
Okay, so I feel totally comfortable working with the league, trying to help the people I work with. So I think when people see that you're walking in purpose, it's no weapons formed against at that point. When you're walking in purpose, you're not really having a bad day. You just have days that aren't as good as the good days, the better days. So, but I think telling your story, finding young men like these guys to help you figure out how to tell it better and where to tell it.
Yes.
Can't tell it everywhere.
Can't tell it.
And where to put yourself out in the public. Like tonight is a great event where you're able to meet and interact. Hopefully a lot of you met each other and things like this. But you got to get out, but you got to choose the right events to go to. I mean, there's so many things that you can go to now, and you go and you're like, really? Okay. You're not meeting people that are very authentic. And I think that's another thing that these guys are. And I think the message that they're putting out as they work with you is a very authentic message, really who you are. And I think that's important for people to see so that they trust you. And then when you say, buy my book,
Right.
or hire me to speak,
Right.
they will do it.
Exactly.
You know, and so I don't know. Any more comments before I get to this guy right here? Any more questions that we won't charge you for?
Kevin?
Yes.
So I'm Christine with Dodge Digital Studio. We're covering events tonight, but I would like to hear your take on why it's important for entrepreneurs, business owners, even individuals that have their own personal brand, whether it be entertainers, why it's important to not use a templated website.
Because you want creativity and you want originality. Nowadays, that whole cookie cutter thing, it no longer works. It's when I look at your website and I go to your competitor's website and you both have the exact same thing, there's no originality, there's no personality there. And that's what you really want to shine through your marketing and through your messaging, and especially through your website. I want to see the personality of the business. I want to see who you are. And that's what you need to highlight in your website more so than anything.
So any more free questions? All right, we'll get to this guy.
Yes.
So I'm going to get
Let's
this
sit close to me.
Okay.
One of the joys that I have a lot of times on my show is where I'm able to interview people that are in business. But the reason why I really like interviewing them is not where they're at today. I really like finding out how they got to where they're at. And I've heard some amazing stories, but not like this story right here. Okay? So what I normally do on my show, I like you to introduce yourself, tell them who you are, and then we'll get to talking about how you got to where you are.
Okay. All right. Well, my name is Abraham Xiong, and I'm originally from Laos, and I had to escape the country to get to the U.S. But what I do now is I get to empower people to grow their organizations, a little bit in the commercial, but to strengthen their companies in the commercial market, but ultimately to expand into the government sector, because the government is the largest customer in the world, larger than Google, Facebook, Walmart, and they buy from every single customer. And so I do that, and you talk about your journey, and you talk about living your purpose. I get to live my purpose, helping people to grow, and I've seen all kinds of different companies come from new startup, now they're winning millions of dollars of government contracts. And as we go through this conversation, I want to share some of those stories later on. Yeah.
So let's talk about, he just kind of breezed through the I came to America thing.
Yeah, right.
Let's talk about a little story. Just tell a little bit about your past, growing up.
Sure.
And y'all got some tissue. Y'all might need a little.
Well, my parents, our people, were the indigenous people of Laos. And so I grew up in the jungle. I was born with a wet nurse bringing me out of my mother's womb. And my parents were the first generation to make contact with the world. So think about Amazon tribe, seeing an airplane fly by, but not knowing what it is. It's just it's a bird flying by, but it doesn't flap its wings. And so they made contact with the world in their generation. And so I was born in that there. And so in the 60s, the CIA came to the jungles of Laos and said, hey, there's these army cutting through Laos to get to South Vietnam. It was the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And so North Vietnam was cutting through Laos to get to South Vietnam during the Vietnam War. And so the U.S. said, hey, will your people help us fight against the communist regime. And so my parents, they didn't know the world. They didn't understand much about anything, but they understood that certain aspect of communism that they didn't agree with. And so our people became kind of like the U.S. soldiers in Laos. Whereas the U.S. put soldiers in Vietnam, they couldn't technically put soldiers in Laos because Laos is a neutral country. But war was happening. And there wasn't a war that was declared. And Laos is actually the most bombed nation in the history of the world. Because since the U.S. couldn't put soldiers there, they just bombed the mess out of it. And so so I grew up in that environment there. And so when I was about 6 years old, the U.S. pulled out of Vietnam, and along with that, Laos and Cambodia and all of Southeast Asia. And so as a young kid, I didn't know anything. I mean, all I knew was I have a little dog that I love, and I love running around, and you're playing games with my friends and so forth. And so my parents said, hey, we need to leave. And leaving Laos in the middle of the war, it's not like you get on an airplane and you fly out. I remember that the U.S. said that there was a dirt strip in the mountains of Laos. And they said, if you can make it to this dirt strip, we're going to airlift people out. And I remember we packed up everything we could, and we made it to this dirt strip. And there was helicopters airlifting people out. And my parents had 6 little kids. I was in the middle, and they have a newborn, and they have a 12-year-old. All the way from newborn to 12-year-old. And there were thousands of people trying to rush into these helicopters. And my parents said, do we rush in these helicopters, or do we maybe find a different way out? And my dad, like most men, right? Usually if there's somebody with a crazy thought, usually the guys. And my dad has a crazy thought, and he said, marriage counseling. He needed marriage counseling. He said, maybe I should leave, and once the war is over and the country is stabilized, I'll come back and bring the family out. Because when the new regime take over, they're going to kill the men first. Wow. So that was his first thought. And then he thought for a second, and then reality hit him again. And he looked at my mom and said, you know what? If we die, we die together. And if we live together. And so we decided not to rush the helicopter, because kids can't rush thousands of people into a helicopter. So we decided to go ahead and hike out of Laos. And so we hid in the jungle. And then at nighttime, that's when we travel. Because at night, you can see campfires and you can see lights. And they can't see you. So we would hide during the daytime and sleep during the daytime and travel by night. And my kids, I've got a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they love bedtime stories. And I want to tell about the dragon. I want to tell them about the princess. They said, no, Dad, just tell us about what you ate in Laos. That's all they want to hear. And so I would tell them, hey, while we were, in Laos, we ate as a refugee trying to, escape and get to safety. You eat whatever you can forage. So we ate roots. There's certain type of roots. If you know the leaves, you know that you dig to the roots, you can eat those roots. And so we would eat the roots. And there's certain type of plants you can eat the leaves. And then we would find nice, beautiful caterpillars. And they're about this long and bigger than my thumb. And we would take those grubs or caterpillars, and we would put it into the burning ashes, not the coal itself, but and it burns the skin off, and it creates a black charcoal, and it tastes like marshmallow.
Wow.
And it oozes and.
All right. The reason why I wanted him to tell that story is because we're going to get to now about him being an entrepreneur. But the reason why I wanted to tell the story was that we all come from different places. We all have different walks. And I meet a lot of people every day that have everything it takes to start a business. They don't know they can. I get asked the question a lot of time, why do the immigrants come to America and start businesses at twice the rate of Americans? A lot of times it's because they come here with a mission. They come here with a purpose. So I think it's important to hear his story. The little caterpillar thing, I think we go. But so you come to America and you decide to get into entrepreneurship. Let's talk about your first forays into starting your own business and things like that.
Sure. So we got to the refugee camps in Thailand, and then finally there was a Lutheran church in Ohio that sponsored us to come to the U.S. And we didn't speak any English, and this is how we said no when we came to the U.S. and so we were a little afraid to get to an airplane to bring us from Thailand to the U.S. And they said, we're going to this place called Ohio. And, we didn't know what Ohio was. And so we were about to land in Ohio, and we looked out this is going to be a new adoptive home, and we're excited about coming to America. And we looked out the window, and we saw nothing but white sand everywhere. And we thought, there's nothing green in America. There's nothing but a barren desert of white sand. We're going to die in America. We're farmers. We're people of the earth. We live off the land. We eat caterpillars. There's no caterpillars in America. And they said, oh, that stuff is called snow. We've never seen snow before. We don't have a word for snow in our language.
Wow.
And so it was quite an environmental shock coming to America. And then we finally landed, and it was too cold for us that first year. So we told the church, and we said, hey, we're really grateful that you brought us to the U.S., but we need to move to some place that's a little warmer. So we moved to California. But from a young age, I just really appreciate the foundation of this nation, that anyone can start anything, and you just have to have the spirit of, I want to go after it. And so from a young age, I just really appreciated, the opportunities in the United States. And so my first experience of entrepreneurship was, we lived in Santa Ana, California, and there was a man with a small business. And he watered plants in offices. And so I was 13 years old. He didn't know, or I didn't know, that he was mentoring me. And it's kind of like what you do, right? You mentor people, and here Kevin is today, right? Mm-hmm. And so sometimes you plant seeds along your life, and you go around, and whether you intentionally planted the seed, or sometimes you just go, you share something that empowers them and changes their lives. And so this man said, hey, you looking for a job? I'm 13 years old. I'm not looking for a job. I'm thinking about, hey, what we're gonna play, and who I can play with and hang out with. And I said, sure, right? That's entrepreneurship. That was my first lesson in entrepreneurship. When a window opens, you gotta jump through it.
That's right. Yeah.
And I jumped. I didn't know. I jumped through it. And so I said, yeah. So he said, well, Saturday come to my office. Now, he didn't ask me what skill set I have. At 13, I've got a lot of experiences. Which is out there, right? And so I went there, and he said, I want you to wash my car. And so I washed his car. And then he said, now you're done with the car, I want you to take out the trash. So
he didn't go wax on, wax off.
He taught me that in a different way. Trash in, trash out. So that was my first exposure to entrepreneurship. But that planted the seeds like, wow, you know what? There's something about business that if you can really embrace it, it can change your life. And so as time passed, when I was 19 years old, I decided that I'm going to start my own first business. And it was an accidental, because I didn't have any money, didn't have any resources, but I met this gentleman, and he was opening up a store. And so I knew I wanted to be entrepreneurship, but he was opening up a store, and I just went in there. I was collecting baseball cards. And we started talking, and he said, do you want to work with me? I said, well, no, I've got a job. I'm not looking for a job. He said, no, I'm talking about, do you want to be my partner? I'm 19 years old. And he says, do you want to be my partner? Because we just had a great conversation. And so he said, you want to be he was a principal of a school. And he needed someone to run his new store that he was opening. And he didn't know how, sometimes entrepreneurship, you just jump out there. You don't know, you don't have the answer to everything, but you just jump out there, right? Yeah. And so that's what he did. And then the Spirit guided me there and connect us together, and I became his business partner in this little retail store selling comic books and baseball cards. So that was my first real exposure to entrepreneurship and actually selling and making money in that way. So I did that for a few years. And then I thought, you know what? I hear something talking to me. And I said, I want to go back to Laos and change the world. So I decided that I want to be a missionary for the rest of my life. So I sold everything I had, and I took 2 suitcases, and I went back to Thailand to go back to Laos to be a missionary. And the Lord told me that missionary was not for me. Because sometimes you have to jump out there, right? And while I was in Thailand, I was trying to go back to Laos. I applied for my visa to go to Laos 3 times, and they said, "Why do you want to come to Laos? We have nothing here for you." I said, "This is where I'm from. I love my people. I love my country," and they wouldn't let me in. So I had to listen, and you have to read, right? And so you can force yourself into a situation where you say, "You know what? I'm just gonna read the writing on the wall." And so I said, "You know what? Maybe this is not really what I'm meant to do in life." So I came back to the U.S. and went to work at Motorola, Fortune 500 company. They had 700 employees there, and I was one of 700. And I was a number, doing many great things for them, but I lasted 5 months in corporate America. Now, some of you're still in corporate America. God bless you. Corporate America is for many people, but it's not for everybody. And some people thrive in corporate America, and I believe that corporate America is good for many people. And if you're in corporate America, you should thrive there, you should do great there, and change the world through your role and your perspective there. But I suffocated in corporate America, and some people don't thrive in corporate America, some people suffocated. And so I thought, you know what, maybe this is not for me. And so I decided to go and start a business. Now, I had $300 to my name. And I thought, how do I start a business with $300? I said, I'm going to go out there and start a business. And so I took about $110 or a little bit over $100, and I incorporated my company. Well, now I'm down to $200, right? And so, but you have to step out there and risk. You can eat all of the seeds, or you can eat a little bit of the seeds and plant some seeds so that you can have a future, right?
That's right.
So instead of eating my $300, I decided to plant that. And so I started office furniture business. Now a chair, like this chair here, is probably about 95, actually it's wood, so it's probably about $300. $300 for one chair. I don't have $300. How can you build a furniture business on $300? And people started looking at me and said, "Hey, how are you going to build an office furniture business?" I said, business is not about furniture. Business is not about product. Business is not about a service. What is business about?
Relationships.
People, relationships. And when we talk about people, I understood at a young age that business is about people, and it's about moving people from one place to another place. And it's really what you guys do. Influencing is about moving people from one location to another location, from one emotional state to another emotional state, from a point of resistance to a point of embracing. And that's how people do business. When you move them from a point of, I don't think I need your services or your product, to I see the value in it now. And that's really moving people from one place to another place. And so I understood that, and I said, I'm in the people business. We're all if you are an entrepreneur, you're in the people business. So I said, okay, you know what? I only have $300, but I'm going to start an office furniture company. And so I went out there, and so this is how I defined it. I need to find the people with the problem, and then I need to find the people with the solution. I don't even have to be the solution. That's the beautiful thing about business, right? I find the people that needed furniture. Well, guess what? Every single business out there needs furniture. So I just needed to find somebody that needed furniture at the moment. And sometimes it's not about, everyone needs furniture. Sometimes it's about timing, right? The timing may not be right, so you may have to follow up again until the timing is perfect. So I found every single one of you who are entrepreneurs, you remember your first dollar. Yeah?
I still got mine.
So I'll tell you my first dollar. I found this gentleman, and he said, I need some lateral files. And those lateral files are usually about $500 to $1,000 each. And he says, but I want used lateral files so that I can get it really discounted. And so instead of $1,000, he wants to buy for about $200-$300 each. And so I said, okay, I got you. And so I went back, and back then there was the yellow pages, right? We didn't have Google. And so I took up the yellow pages. And some of you younger, you don't know what the yellow pages is. It's like, what? And so I took out the yellow pages and I started flipping through it. And I started from A. And I just started making phone calls. Because I went through all the office furniture section, started with the A. And by the time I got to the middle of the A, Architectural Installation of Atlanta. That was the first company that had the solution. So I found someone who had a problem. Then went to that, and Brad said, yeah, I got a whole bunch of lateral files. In fact, they just sit in my warehouse doing nothing. If you come take it, I'll give you a real good deal. So I went and met with them, saw the lateral files. While I'm there, I take up my phone, I call the guy. Back then it was the brick phone, right? and so I talked to the guy, and the guy said, yeah, I'll take all that you can get. And so he bought $4,000 worth of furniture, but I sold it to him for $4,500. So I made $500 on that first transaction. I said, you know what? I've more than doubled my $300 now. I went from $300 plus $500, and this can really work. I can really be in business for myself. And so that was my first kill. and so that's kind of my young years as an entrepreneur. So
now that you're an experienced business owner and entrepreneur, let's talk about this association that you have now, Georgia
Government Contractors Association. Yeah.
Let's talk about what it is and what it does for people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think from that business, what I realized is that sometimes you do things, and when there's no longer fun or exciting, or you don't get up and say, you know what, I'm excited about going. Maybe the spirit is talking to you, right? You have to learn to listen. And I thought, furniture is awesome, but I'm not waking up. And I'm a small guy, If I was big like Kevin, I'll still be in furniture business. I can't carry furniture forever. I mean, I had employees, I had staff, and so forth. So I decided to sell that business, and then I started buying real estate and started flipping properties, and I started building communities. And that was going well until 2007, 2008 hit, right? Some of you guys remember that, right? And we had about $20 million of communities out there. And in 1 year, it was all gone.
Wow.
And I thought, hey, the Lord provides and the Lord takes. Yep. And I came to this country with nothing but the shirt on my back, didn't even speak a single word of English. I've got a wife, 2 kids, I got a home, I've got breath of life. Gosh, he is shutting down the real estate business. He is closing down all the banks because he just wants me to move on to something else. That's kind of how I saw it, right? He's got a bigger plan for me. He just wants me to move on to something else.
You said 2008 was all about you?
Yeah, it was all about me. Unfortunately, a few people got impacted. It was my fault. A few people got hurt along the way. But sometimes, as an entrepreneur, you have to see that the cup is half full.
That's right.
It is not half empty.
Absolutely.
And I know friends during that time that they killed themselves during that time. And so we laughed about it a little bit, but it was very challenging, very serious time. But I learned some very important lesson in the midst of all the losses. I realized that who your friends are, because some friends will stick with you through thick and thin, and whether you have money or not, they're still your friends, right? So you start to see, and not because some people aren't my friends, but their love and their friendship is only to a certain depth.
So we call that ride or die. Some of us just got ride, and others got ride or die. You just had some riders.
That's right. And then I also learned that I'm in a very desperate situation. And I told my wife, I said, hey, you know what, honey, I'm not so proud where I can't go work for another company. I'll do whatever to provide for a family. I applied for about close to almost 40, 50 jobs. One company called me back. I said, well, I guess this is what I need to do. And so I went to work for this company, and they treated me like dirt. And so we went to training for a whole week, and the first week out, I was the first person to make a sale for that company. And that whole week, there was only 2 people that made a sale for the company. I was the first one. And then the second week, we went back out, and there was some issues, and I called my manager back up, and I said, hey, you know what? You guys gave me information that this prospective client, that they do $1 million in revenue, but they're really $100,000. They can't really afford our services because our services is $200,000-$300,000. And so I just want to give you an update on that. And she said, don't call me like a dog with your tail between your legs. Just go and do your darn job. That's what she said to me. And that devastated me. Because as an entrepreneur, I would never treat any of my staff or anybody around me that way. And also, I would not allow anyone to treat me that way.
That's right.
And so I thought, Lord, I try to listen to the Spirit, and I went in this direction because this is the only company that called me back. But maybe you're teaching me something through this here. That I can't let anyone treat me the way they want to treat me.
That's right.
I have to hold people to a better standard.
That's right.
So I kindly called the company up, and I said, hey, you know what? I really appreciate the opportunity.
Was it really kind?
I was kind, yes. And that's another important principle in business, right? You never burn a bridge. If it's up to you, you never burn a bridge. People may burn bridges, but I build bridges, right? People build walls, I tear down walls, right? And so I decided, hey, I called him up and I said, hey, I really appreciate it. The guy that recruited me there, I said, hey, I really appreciate it, but I'm going to move on. And this is not. He said, well, why? I said, well, I really don't want to get into the details of why, but I just want to move on. He said, well, I'm going to have to put something in your file. I said, well, this is what the manager said to me, and I can't put myself in a situation where a manager will treat me this way. So I'm going to move on. And so I moved on, and I came back home. My real estate business is gone. I don't have any clients. I don't have any, don't have a new business. But I still had an office that the lease was not over yet. And so I went to the property manager and I said, hey, I want you to let me stay. And she said, let you stay? I said, why? You don't have a business? Why do you want to come to an empty office? I said, because I'm going to build another business. And she said, well, I can't let you stay for free. And I looked at her in the eye and I said, hey, you can let me stay for what I can afford, or you can kick me out just like everybody else. She said, okay, well, what can you afford? Now, sometimes you know that it's you talking, and sometimes it's a higher power talking, right? And so in that moment, the higher power said $500. I didn't have $500. In fact, by that point in my life, the repo man took my car away. We filed business bankruptcy, personal bankruptcy. My mortgage was 7-8 months behind. I can't even pay my mortgage. How am I going to pay a lease on an office for $500? And I thought, but out of my mouth, these words came out. So she said, well, I don't think I can do that. But she said, I'll think about it. So a few hours later, she came up to the office. She said, Abe, I'm going to let you stay for $500. Now, usually it's about $1,700, $1,800 for that space there. And so she let me stay for $500. And as an entrepreneur, right, I had to figure out how to come up with $500. Don't have a business, don't have any source of income. 2008, my whole income for the whole year was $6,000. 2 kids, a wife, and we just paid what we could and did pay what we don't have, what we couldn't. We let go of everything we could. Cable, what was that, right? You cut the cord, we cut the cord, right? And so now I have to find a way to come up with $500. Well, I had my flip phone. I've upgraded from a brick phone to a flip phone by that point, right? I had a flip phone, and the average person has about 150 phone numbers on their phone. Now, for you, the rest of you who are entrepreneurs and who are in the community, you understand that that's for the average person. All of you probably have about 800 to 1,000 phone numbers on your phone. So I took out my flip phone. I had about 1,000 phone numbers on there, and I just started going down the list again, right? It wasn't the yellow pages anymore, but it was my flip phone, and I just started calling people I knew on the phone that had a small business. And I said, hey, you know what? How's your business coming? Started talking to them, and they said, yeah, it's going okay. I said, where are you working from? And a few of them said, yeah, I'm working from home. I said, I have a beautiful office for you. A private office with a conference room, with a training room.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. In fact, you've been there once. They said, oh yeah, I remember being there once. And they said, well, how much is it? $250. I said, that's it? $250 for a private office? I found 2 people to take me up. And so I was able to cover $500. And then now all I had to do was hustle for about $100 to pay the cable. That was it. My part of it was $100. So every day I was coming to an empty office with no business, nothing. When tough time comes, right, as an entrepreneur, you have to make tough decisions. And I knew that if I didn't get up out of bed every day, that psychologically I was going to die. Emotionally I was going to die. Spiritually I was going to die. And then there were some enemies in the house. The fridge was an enemy. And then if you put a lock on the fridge, the TV was an enemy.
Okay.
And the worst enemy of all is what? The bed. And it said, oh, yeah, don't you love me? Hey, just sleep in a little bit longer, right? And so the bed was my enemy. And so every day I had to do the fundamentals of what an entrepreneur should do. Get up out of bed every day, put on my suit, my tie, or put on my jeans and my khakis and go to office every day. To nothing. And so I went to the office one day, and a friend was having a meeting in my conference room. And I walked in and I said, what are you guys talking about? And the guy said, oh, we're talking about government contracting. I said, oh, what's that? Like some of you are like, what is government contracting, right? I said, well, what's that? And he said, well, you've got a minute? I'll tell you about it. Because he's excited about government contracting. So I've kind of heard of it, but I really didn't know what it was. And so he started telling me about government contracting. He said, you know, hey, I spent 22 years in the military. 11 of those years, I was a contracting officer, and I've awarded over $5 billion in government contracts to businesses. So now that I'm retired, I want to help businesses expand their business to the government market. He said, wow, that's really interesting. He said, well, tell me about you. And I told him about my life story. He said, you know, Abe, you understand business. He said, we should combine his procurement knowledge with my business knowledge, and we should start a company together. And so I had to take a series of walking the unknown, doing the fundamentals so that I can get to a point where that door will open. And so when we started talking, I said, well, you know, you and I, we just met. I said, well, why don't you think about it and see if this might be right for us. And so I said, let's talk next week. Well, the next day he called me up and said, hey, I thought about it. Let's do something. And so we came together, we started a consulting business, and I did the business side of it, and he did the government contracting training side. So I brought in clients, and he would teach them, guide them through the government market. And so we did that, became a really good, successful consulting company. We had about 17 employees working there with us. But as consultants, right? Any consultants in the room? Yeah, you're a consultant. If you work with people, all of us in some ways, we do consulting, right? And so I said, as consultants, we charge a lot of money. Because as a consultant, you have to build, your billable rates have to be high enough so that you can cover your overhead, all of your expenses, and your time.
Yeah.
So you're not just charging for your time. It's not like $15 an hour, $25 an hour, so you can pay the bills. You got to be able to charge enough $200, $300, $400, $500 an hour so that you can cover everything else. So as consultants in the government space, we were very expensive. And if a business didn't have $100,000 to $200,000, $300,000, they couldn't afford our services. And then I started running into a lot of small businesses like some of you. I said, how do I help this woman-owned business? How do I help this minority-owned business? How do I help this veteran who served our nation, and now he's got a small business, but he knows that there's money in the government market, but how he can't break into it? And I think back to one of my heroes, Congressman John Lewis. He said, we have to stand in the way of injustice. And so there's a lot of injustice out there. I mean, there's social media injustice. That's what you guys do, right? But there's social injustice where, my wife is African American, and I've got 2 kids. My son is 14-year-old, and my daughter is 12. And I'm raising a young black man in America, and he's going to face the challenges that I never faced, and I have to raise him up in this community. And so I had challenges, he had challenges. We all have different type of challenges. And so there's all types of injustice out there. I can go on the street and hold up a sign that said Black Lives Matter. Or I can go to my friends who are police officers and hold up a sign that said Blue Lives Matter. Or I can say, you know what, all lives matter. And there's some things that people can do, and you can rally around different causes like that. But the way you really make a difference in terms of any type of injustice is through economic justice. And so I decided that...
Give a little reference.
So thinking about Congressman John Lewis, I said, you know what, that's really what I'm going to do. I'm going to take all my years of business experiences, I'm going to take the years of government contracting experience I have, I'm going to start an association. To where it doesn't matter if you're a brand new company, it doesn't matter if you have $100,000, it doesn't even matter if you have a company or not. I'm going to find a way to show you how to get into this government market. And so I started that, and here's the reality. All of us here, we have one vote. You as an individual, you have one vote. But when you deploy George Washington, that's one vote. When you deploy a Benjamin Franklin, that's 100 votes. When you put Andrew Jackson to work, he is working, there's 20 little Andrew Jacksons running around working for you. They don't call in because the kids are sick. They don't miss work. They go and work every single day. When you put them to work, they work for you. And so we can put money to work. That's how we can really create economic justice. And so what I do at the association is I teach people, groom people, help them to understand that the world of government contracting, that the government is the largest customer in the world. They spend $500 billion a year. And if you're in cleaning, it's $19 to $20 billion a year. If you're in construction, who's in construction? I think they left. Construction, that's $28 billion. Media, IT, that's $38 billion. So there's all this money in the government market, but business just don't know how to access that. So I realized that, okay, this is my calling. And so I decided to revamp my whole life, start the association.
So you went back to the missionary thing.
Yes, exactly it. The missionary call was, I misunderstood it the first time. Yes.
Ooh, that's good.
But I found my true calling. And let me share with you a few stories about the companies that we've been able to really help to grow and to change. And I met a young lady, her name is Tasha, and she went through the same thing I went through in real estate. And so when she heard my story about real estate and how I transitioned from that into the government market, and she said, you know what, Abe, can you help me get into the government market? I said, yeah, absolutely. And she didn't have money. She lost everything like I did through the real estate market, and I've been able to rebuild myself, and she said, you know, I can do that too. So I said, start a company. So she started a company, and she started coming to classes and learning. And so she went from that to getting a few subcontracting work, and then she started to say, you know what, now that I've got a few subcontracting projects, maybe it's time to go and get some government work. And so she went out there, and I remember her first project. It was at Fort McPherson Even after they closed it down, there's still a little bit of work happening at Fort McPherson. And they needed some minor renovation in one of the buildings. And it was a $22,000 project. And that was her first dollar. And she got that first contract, and then that relationship transferred to another relationship. And so she went from 22 to hundreds of thousands. And one of the largest contracts that she won was $3.1 million in Miami, doing U.S. Coast Guard security. She doesn't own a gun. Her company does not have a security guard license to even operate a security company. But some of the principles we teach is that, remember, business is not about product or service. Business is about relationship, about people. And it's about finding someone who has a problem and finding someone who has a solution. So she understood that. So she said, I found that the government needed security guards for this U.S. Coast Guard facility. And so she found a company that does security guards. And she said, I'm gonna team with you so that we can be partners and so that we can do this $3.1 million contract together. So through that, she managed the contract. They manage the contract. They do the work itself on site. So because they have the security guard license. And so they operate it on the ground. She managed the contract, and they both make money, and everybody keeps on going. That's one story. But probably one of the most amazing story of all the business that I've been able to work with. There was a 69-year-old lady. She was a public school teacher, and she worked her way, and she became a principal here in Atlanta public school system here. And then she retired. And so at 69, we met, and she said, hey, I always want to start a business, and I want you to teach me how to do business. I said, Barbara, you should be drinking martini on the beach. And she said, no, hey, I want to leave a legacy. I said, Barbara, every single student that you've impacted, that's your legacy. She said, no, that's great, but I want to leave a different type of legacy. I want to leave a company behind. And so I said, Barbara, having a business is like having a new baby. And this baby is not a 9-month incubation, and this baby is not cute. Because when you birth this baby, nobody wants to take care of it. You say, hey, can you watch my baby for a little bit? No, I'm too busy. Young companies are ugly babies and no one wants anything to do with it, right? And so I said, Bob, are you committed? Are you serious about this, sir? Because it's real work. She said, hey, I'm serious. And so, as a business coach, sometimes, as a coach, I don't tell people what to do. I encourage them, I inspire them, and I educate them so they can make the best decision. So one of our early days, and I want to see if she is, because educators are usually go to school, go to college, get a job, and retire, right? Usually educators are always taught about entrepreneurship. And so I was a little concerned that she may not have what it takes to be an entrepreneur. And some of you think you know what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Maybe you don't. And you have to question that by yourself. And if you don't and you want to be an entrepreneur, are you willing to make the sacrifices? And are you willing to take the risk? And so one of the first tests, to this day she doesn't know it was a test, was I said, Barbara, I know that you love your flip phones, but we're in the age of smartphones. And so I want to encourage you to go and get a smartphone. She looked at her flip phone, she said, hey, this works perfectly fine for me. Why should I go get a smartphone? I said, well, I'm going to teach you about marketing. There's some things you can do with a phone. And I just left it at that. When next week she comes back with 2 smartphones. And I said, you know what? She's going to be a great entrepreneur. And I said, well, why'd you get 2 smartphones? She said, because my husband, and he's got a flip phone too. And so she was not only great at following and suggestions and so forth, she thought beyond what's in front of her, right? So she thought about her husband and the impact of what one thing can do. So she said, okay, so what am I going to do with this phone? and she wanted to be an author. You're kind of like you. She wanted to be an entrepreneur, and she wanted to be many things. Even at her twilight years, she wanted to be many things. And I said, okay. So the first thing I did was I didn't teach her about government contracting. It's kind of like, digital media. When you guys share with people in terms of what to do, they may not understand everything. But you're going to tell them to do this here. And if they don't do that, you may not be able to get them to the next step. And so I said, you know what? But sometimes you start with something that it's a little bit easier so that she can have victory. So I said, Barbara, you always want to be an author. So we're going to publish your books. She said, for real? Now she's not, I'm not coaching her about things outside of government contracting, but I realized that, unless I give her a little victory, she may not get to go, because government contracting is harder. So she said, okay, so what are we going to do? And so I said, you see this thing called Indiegogo? She said, yeah. So we're going to create a campaign for you. And this smartphone that you got, we're going to connect with people, and you're going to invite people to this Indiegogo campaign about the books that you're publishing so that they can come and support you. And she said, okay. So we shot a video. I didn't do any of the work. The only thing I did was press the camera, and because I have to teach her how to do it. And so she created her campaign, and so finally it was time to do social media. And I'm not really good at social media, but I said, okay, there's a few things you got to do on social media. And I know enough that you got to go to social media and share with people. That's the only way. Just having an Indiegogo campaign, money's not going to drop. And I said, now it's time to take your smartphone and connect on Facebook. She said, oh, you know what? My daughter created me an account. I've never used it before. and she said, okay, I'll do that. And so she went and found her password and set up her Facebook and cleaned it up and did everything. She started connecting to people. And she came back one week. She said, hey, there's this guy. He wants to be my friend, and I don't know him. And I said, Barbara, back in the days, right? You go to the park and you meet a stranger, and then you become friends. Or you go to church and you meet a stranger, and you become friends. Well, nowadays you're on Facebook, you meet a stranger, but you connect, and at some point you become friends. She said, oh, is that how it works? So she did her campaign, and she raised $1,500 on her own on Facebook so that she can get her books going. And I'm so proud of her. Today she has 7 books published.
Wow. Not
self-published, but a publisher picking her up, publishing her 5 books, and she's got more books on the way. So that was her first victory. I said, okay, she can do entrepreneurship. Then now it's time for government contracting. So we had to start her business. She didn't have a company, so we had to start a business, find a name, get a logo, build a website, all these different things here, and she's technologically challenged. She gets lost in her email. So can you imagine, a more mature lady who can't navigate through even her email? But she had the spirit of, I'm going to do whatever it takes because I'm going to figure this out. So she finally got to the point where we got all these things done, and she said, okay, I'm ready for some government contract. I said, well, government contract is about relationship also. It's not, yes, there's a lot of regulations, but it's still about relationship. It's about what you talked about earlier, KLT. They got to know you, they got to like you, they got to trust you. And that's what social media and digital marketing is about. Building a brand so that people can know you, like you, and trust you. So she said, okay. So we started, I said, the first thing you want to do is you want to find a place that you have a relationship with, because you've been in the educational system and you're starting a tutoring company, then that's where we start. So she started reaching out to the different principals, to the different schools that she knew. And so she reached out to a principal in DeKalb County, and they had a program to where they have grant money from the government, and they needed someone to come and tutor the kids that need extra help. And so her first contract, it took us 13 months to get to that first contract, but she wanted a $25,000 project. And so I said, congratulations, but because she was rolling up her sleeve and she was going to be the tutor, right? I said, Barbara, are you a business owner or are you a tutor? And that's one of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs make, right? And there's a book by Michael Gerber. All of you should look and get this book. It's called The E-Myth. And it stands for the entrepreneur's myth. Okay. And what we do as people who are really talented is we go out there, and let me give you a real example. You're good at cooking. And people say, oh man, your food is so awesome. You should start a restaurant, right? And so you say, okay. Because my family loves my food. The neighbors love my food. Everybody I share my food with, I cook my food for. They love it. So you go and you take your life saving, you open up a restaurant. And you're in the back, and you're cooking, and you're the chef, and you're cooking, and people, all of your friends and all your neighbors come out and support you. So the first week, oh man, I'm going to make it. It's going to be awesome. And then clients says go down, and 4 months later, you can't pay the rent. And you said, but my food is so awesome. Why is it? Part of it is because they don't have social media. But before you can do social media, because as a restaurant, you need marketing. But before you can do marketing, you have to understand that as an entrepreneur, you're not the chef anymore. You have to be a business owner. And so chefs, if you never transfer your mindset from being a chef to being an entrepreneur, then your business is going to not grow and you're going to suffer until you quit. And so for entrepreneurs, I have to help people to understand that you can't be the chef anymore. And so I had to help Barbara that you can't be a tutor anymore. And I said, so if you're not going to be the tutor, who can tutor? She said, oh, you know what? I got all my friends that we were in the school system together. So she started calling a few of her friends, and she hired her friends, 2 friends, made them tutors on the project, paid them $25 an hour, which is more than working at a retail store getting paid $7.50 standing greeting people at the door as a retiree. So she became an employer, put people to work, and she started running her company, and she's doing awesome. And so, but that's really what I get to do. And so government contracting, yeah, it's about winning government contract, but it's really about empowering people and helping people to go from one place to another place.
I had to say, and stories like what he says, and I hope you got a lot from that, because it's all about perseverance. It's all about understanding what their first calling was, being a missionary. But even for me, when I was 16, somebody kept telling me to get in the pulpit. I was like, no, that ain't cool, yo. But I found out now I'm in the pulpit.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're gonna find as you start entertaining and talking to more entrepreneurs, this is a calling that they had a long time ago, but it's just learning how to listen. And stop. I stopped a long time ago. I used to cut deals. Lord, if you let me do this, I'll do that. I cut deals. I stopped cutting deals. I just started walking and listening, like he said. So, great stories, man. I mean, we could probably sit here a lot longer.
Oh yeah.
But he's gonna start flicking the lights.
Some parking means gonna start expiring in a minute.
I got a car. But what about this guy? No,
well, thank everyone. We really want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. We really do. We definitely appreciate you coming and telling your story to us. We're also a big part of the Atlanta Business Journal, and we have magazines for everyone on your way out. And feel free, you can hang around for a little while if you want to, help us clean up, move some chairs, whatever. But no, thank you so much for coming out. And I hope you guys enjoyed Abraham Xiong tonight. And I hope we got information from everyone so that way we can stay in touch with you.
and this is one of many events. These guys are going to be doing this on a regular basis with the goal of doing a bigger event.
Yes.
So the whole goal is for you to bring out other people of like minds and come have conversation and discussion so that we can start moving this, what do you call it, economic what?
Justice.
That's right.
So we can start
Economic
changing
justice.
that dynamic Because a lot of us have depended on corporate America for survival, and it's not there anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, it's all on us, the way it used to be. Okay, so we're getting back. You know, they say entrepreneurship is something new, but it's not. It's what we were built on. You know, my grandmother did hair for 30 years, and I didn't know it was really a business. I just know she did hair. And my grandfather built a little place out front, but he fixed on cars, so you get your hair done there, your car fixed on. And then you put a little store out front, you get a little grocery. But the thing is, this is how we were raised. You know, there's a Friday fish lady, the candy lady. These people exist in our community. But when Walmart opened up, we stopped going to it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got to get back to that. So I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. I want to thank these guys for letting me do what I do. And we're going to be doing this again.
Yes, very soon.
And
you are all invited.
Yeah, all invited. And also, too, if you have ideas of the topics that we should be bringing up, things that we should be discussing tonight was digital media. There's a lot of topics around entrepreneurship. So contact these guys, throw out some topics. You got some guests that we should, I don't think anybody's going to top this guy here, that we should be talking to, recommend to them. But help these young men out, help them do what they're doing, because they're walking a new purpose.
Thank you.
All right?